With the news dropping recently that DICE is making changes to the way weapons will be unlocked in the next chapter, we're moving away from limited time unlocks towards grind-based unlocks. That's quite a big change. It's left me thinking about other big changes that could or maybe should be happening with Battlefield 5 in the next couple of months or so. There's plenty the game still hasn't received via updates that really ought to be implemented by now, but of all of those, there are two really big things that I personally feel this game needs. Because, well, really without them, Battlefield 5 is definitely a worse game than it could otherwise be. These two features focus on player experience overall, and I think without them, they play a major role in why people are disengaging with the game over time and eventually they just stop logging back in. I'm talking about team balance and anti-cheat, two massively core features that to this day, Battlefield 5 still lacks. First of all then, a functioning team balancer. Having spent more time recently playing Insurgency Sandstorm, which is a game that does have a functioning team balancer and a built-in volunteer switching system, it's become clearer and more obvious how many unbalanced and stacked servers Battlefield 5 has. With many more players being part of Battlefield game modes, all the way up to 64 players, the impact of a stacked team with a multitude of highly skilled players, that can hit much harder overall than in a game like Insurgency Sandstorm. Although I will say that the effects of any stacked team in any game can be very easily felt. Game modes like Breakthrough, they really suffer if teams are unbalanced. That results in matches where one team either completely steamrolls the other by attacking all the sectors, taking all of the flags really quickly, and the match finishing in a matter of minutes, or where a defensive team is so strong that attackers fail to make it past the first sector. For 32 players in that server, the experience isn't really the one that you want to be having. The result of situations like this is players quitting matches, and that leaves teams further unbalanced. But this time it's due to a lack of players rather than the skill of the players placed onto each team. The longer the teams remain unbalanced, the worse the situation becomes, and the more players it ends up affecting. Insurgency Sandstorm uses an automatic team balancing system. If teams become too unbalanced in terms of player numbers for a period of time, the game will automatically move players around to balance the numbers out. This is a feature that Battlefield 5 could do with implementing to solve the issues of players quitting when one team is stacked with good players. The team that's suffering, those players are more likely to quit because they're having a bad time. So having a system that would automatically move players over to the team with less players, that would result in a more balanced fight. Sandstorm also has a manual team switching feature as well, where players can voluntarily move over to the other team to create a more balanced match. Now this is something many previous Battlefield games have had, but for some reason DICE elected not to implement it into Battlefield 5. And I would have said that having a manual team switcher not available in the game would be fine if you had a proper automatic team balancer, but because there is no inbuilt balancing at all in Battlefield 5 at the moment, it might just be a good idea to implement one of these two simpler systems to try and combat the clear problems with balance that this game is facing. There's also the option to maybe implement a pre-round balancer as well. Maybe take the results of the previous match, all of the statistics of the players that played in that match, and then shuffle the teams around to create a more balanced scenario next time around. I mean, in general, I just find it very strange that a game like Battlefield 5 that supports so many players per team, that it just doesn't have a functioning balance system at all. I find that really strange. And of course, feedback has been coming in from the community pretty much since the launch of the game for balancing features to be added. I think implementing either a mid-round or a pre-round balancer, or maybe both, would go a long way to alleviating player frustration. It would give them a better experience overall. And then secondly, for the PC platform specifically, we need the situation with hackers and cheaters to be addressed in a fairly major way. This is one of those situations that really, from a AAA video game, you don't expect, because those games have big budgets behind them, large development teams. Basically, they have the means to safeguard the online environment from cheaters. Companies like EA and DICE do have more resources than indie games out there on the market, and so I think there's an expectation that AAA video games that have an online element should have some reasonable form of anti-cheat. But whatever the reason might be, Battlefield 5 either doesn't have an anti-cheat solution, or the one that is implemented simply doesn't work very well. Ever since the launch of the game, it's become very clear that Battlefield 5 relies heavily on player reporting first and foremost, and then anything else that might be there comes second. I don't think there is an anti-cheat element that appears to be running with Battlefield 5 that would detect third-party software that might be interfering with the game. Battlefield 5 feels like a bit of an open season for hackers and cheaters. In certain regions where cheating is more aggressive, places like Asia, Battlefield 5 suffers significantly, with many players not even being able to complete a single match without running into a cheater or having their game experience affected by one. The only options for players right now are manual reporting every time they encounter a cheater, or playing in community game servers with an active owner who can then temporarily ban the cheaters. And it's only temporary because the community game servers deactivate when they're empty, and that deletes the ban list. Once players are reported via the manual reporting system, there's another issue at play. There's no feedback about that report you submit. You don't know if the person was actually a cheater or not because you never get a report back or a message from EA or DICE to say, hey, we banned that person, or hey, we didn't ban that person. Now, it's not particularly clear why we don't get any feedback in this scenario, but I think it's got something to do with what kind of information EA is allowed to share publicly with regards to accounts, although I'm not 100% sure. However, as a gamer, someone who really just wants to play the game that's in front of them and have a good time, the manual reporting system not giving any feedback, that leaves me with no confidence that anything is indeed being done about the cheating situation in Battlefield 5. Now, the reports may very well be actioned on very quickly. Cheaters might be dealt with quickly once someone has investigated the report and they've verified that cheating has taken place. But because there's no way to know that the report you submitted ended up with a ban or it didn't end up with a ban, there's no way to tell what happens with the process. It's completely opaque. And I understand why it should be opaque, because if too much information gets out there in the hands of cheaters and hackers, then potentially they can work their way around certain systems that EA might be using. But perhaps just sending out a message saying, hey, we banned this person, or hey, we didn't ban this person, that would probably go a long way to giving people more confidence about whatever anti-cheat system is active within Battlefield 5. This is an area that EA and DICE have really dropped the ball on so far. Players should be able to expect to play in a clean, fair environment. There should be minimal invasion from cheaters, hackers, and people using exploits. Of course, you won't be able to get rid of everything, but most issues should be dealt with very quickly, and that leaves you to get back to playing the game, the entire point of what you're doing. Battlefield 5 is a long way from being that clean environment, and something has to be done to improve the situation. The lack of an anti-cheat solution massively degrades the quality of the product in my eyes. It makes the game look subpar, almost amateur. The current system is far too reactionary as well. It relies on players themselves doing the legwork. The system should be actively monitoring for third-party tools. That way you'd have a more proactive approach towards cheating and hacking. And overall, I don't think there's actually a debate here. This is something that Battlefield 5, straight up, should have. Previous Battlefield games have had proactive anti-cheat systems, so why doesn't Battlefield 5 have one? I think 2020 is going to be another really challenging and interesting year for Battlefield 5. Not only because of these two issues that I've highlighted today, but because the game has already struggled for a year to make it out from under that grey negative cloud that it launched under. It's kind of still stuck under that as well. It's never really gone away. There are very few points in the game's past where I can truly say that I was satisfied with the game as a whole. The Pacific launch, that was one of those points, definitely. It finally felt like DICE knew what they wanted to do with Battlefield 5, and as a community, we were moving in the right direction. But once again, we now find ourselves really no further forward. And I think you can say we've regressed again with DICE's attempts to rebalance the gunplay and the time to kill away from settings that the community seemed to be quite happy with. I'm not saying that implementing a team balancer or a robust anti-cheat system would solve all of the game's problems, but I think it would show players that DICE really does care about the health of their game longer term, because both of these features would help create a better gameplay experience and a nicer environment moving forwards. If players knew that safeguards had been put in place to protect them against the influence of cheaters, I think they'd be more likely to keep coming back to the game and experiencing new content with each update. If players knew that the game had a team balancer that would work to keep servers balanced, I think they'd be more likely to keep playing and potentially playing for longer sessions as well. These two features would show players DICE is committed to the long-term health of Battlefield 5, and they could have a big impact on the general community feeling. But there you go. Thanks very much for watching the video, guys. If you enjoyed it, if you could leave me a comment, let me know that you enjoyed it, that's great. Or if you've got any other thoughts or opinions on what I've said today, leave those down below in the comment section. And maybe as well, if you could possibly leave me a rating, a thumbs up would be brilliant, but the dislike button is there if you want to use it. It'd be much appreciated. And everybody who's been engaging recently on my videos, the support has been great. So thanks very much for sticking with me. But enough of me talking now. I'll catch you all in the next one.